going to present to you today Alpine Walking with UTracks, and we're really excited to present this amazing component of our program because it's where we have a lot of passion and we really enjoy our alpine walking. So without further ado, I'm going to present to you Ali Padden, who is our sales manager in the Sydney office in Australia. She has done so much alpine hiking, both in Europe and all around the world, and can't wait to get out on the trails. So she'll be imparting some of her favorites and her tips and tricks on alpine hiking. Myself, I've also had a career of alpine hiking probably since my first hike in the Himalayas, age 12, right up to last year when I hiked the peaks of the Balkan Trail. I really am very passionate about hiking in the Alps, and I'm really excited, therefore, to talk to you about the alpine regions of Europe today. So why would you go on a hiking tour with UTracks? Well, there's a lot of good reasons. There's a lot of good reasons to go on a hiking trip with UTracks, and I'm just going to go to the next slide because that is what I'm going to talk about right now. We are experts in alpine walking since 2007. I think what resonates really well with our travelers is that it's value for money. We provide a really authentic experience of hiking in the European Alps, and it's the way Europeans hike in the Alps, staying in lodge style accommodation that is on the trail. And that's one of our key benefits as we stay on the trail. We also have a super knowledgeable office team. Most of our staff have done alpine hikes, and if they haven't done an alpine hike, they're due to do one this year. On many of our trips in the Alps, we have weekly guaranteed departures for our guided programs. And we do, on that, have guided or self-guided trips. So our guide team is probably one of the most experienced in Europe, and I'll speak a little bit about that later. We have a super strong focus on responsible travel. And for our self-guided hikers, we give them full support, including a navigational app. And today, we're just going to go through a lot of our program in the Alps, how you can get the most out of your alpine hike, and when to go, the training that's required, and some of our favorites. So strap in, and hopefully you will enjoy this experience as much as we will.
Good morning. So why would you choose a guided hike? Our guided groups are around minimum of 6 with maximum of 14. So it's a nice way to join a small group with travelers from around the globe. Joining a group is a great way to share the special experience that you'll have in the Alps with other like-minded hikers. And it also gives you the security knowing that you're joining a guide who knows the terrain, the weather patterns, and it's especially good for walkers who are unfamiliar to alpine terrain. This is also really important in early and late seasons, so spring and autumn, when you could have snow or storms. Like I experienced on our Mont Blanc guided hike in an early June departure with a whiteout. I was very happy to have a guide with me then.
And talking about our guides, our alpine guides have international mountain leaders qualification, or they are UIAGM, which is an even higher level of qualification. Both of these require a number of years of intensive training in first aid, in keeping our clients very safe on the trail. So when you're with the UTracks guide in the mountains, you are certainly well looked after. They will be able to give you so much information about the flora, fauna, what mountains you're looking at, how to walk efficiently in the mountains, and just basically keeping you safe and being a nice company on the trail. The other option you can do in our program is a self-guided, and self-guided is a fantastic way to get a real sense of achievement. First of all, you've got a little bit more flexibility on the trail, so you can stop where you want to stop rather than at the guide's pace or the group's pace. It also means that you're navigating yourself around the mountains. And I think that's a really nice way to experience the Alps. If you're an experienced hiker, we wouldn't recommend doing a self-guided trip in alpine terrains unless you had experience in alpine terrains already and had some multi-day walks under your belt. And to help you with your navigation, we provide you with an app which will help you easily navigate your way around the mountains. You also have signposting on the trail. For example, in the Tour de Mont Blanc or the Haute Route, you've got very, very good signposting on the trail. It's a very well-worn track. Other tracks aren't as clear, and that's where our navigational app and also us providing you with maps and directions and route books will enable you to easily make your way around in the alpine terrain.
Our alpine walks fall into three main categories of grading. So the first is moderate grade, which is great if you're starting out first time walking in the Alps. And this involves around 10 to 18 kilometers per day, in medium altitude and hiking around 4 to 6 hours. There might be options to shorten the walks with public transportation or different routes on self-guided trips. And good examples of a moderate walk would be our Mont Blanc Rambler, our Mont Blanc family, or our Transylvania Castles and Mountains guided or self-guided walk. The next grading is moderate to challenging, which is a grade 4. And examples of that would be our Mont Blanc guided standard 7-day trip, our Mont Blanc Encompass the 10-day or Dolomites guided hike, and many others in this grade 4 range, which is quite typical for the Alpine trips. On the moderate trips, you'll be walking around 10 to 20 kilometers per day. There are more challenging steep uphills and descents, which make these walks take longer as well, so around 5 to 7 hours. The final grading is grade 5, and those are the challenging walks, such as our Monte Rosa, which offers much steeper uphills, a chance to really challenge yourself. Parts of the trails could be exposed, such as the picture on the right, which is actually on the Via Ferrata Dolomites. The grade 5 is suitable for walkers with excellent fitness and previous experience in the Alps. However, you are always with an IML guide if you're choosing a grade 5 guided walk.
So thanks, Sally. So if you're just starting out on your alpine adventures, you've never really done any alpine walks, we'd probably say go for a grade 3 to start off, or a 4 if you're on a guided trip. Would you agree with that, Allie?
Yes, definitely. And then you can work your way up and be proud of those challenges that you overcome.
Okay.
All right, a little bit about the terrain, which is very varied in the Alps. So in a typical day, you might start out in an alpine meadow. The accommodations are generally lower down, and then you'll have lots of ups and downs throughout the day. You may traverse through forest, which is quite nice for shade cover. Paths can be quite rocky. There might be scree or boulders, and in the early and late seasons, as we've mentioned, you can also come across a little bit of snow, as you see in the bottom left-hand picture. It's generally pretty compact, as other people will have walked the trail before you. So it doesn't add a huge challenge, but it's a little bit of an adventure. You may traverse some glaciers, which are absolutely stunning. There might be a few river crossings, and there can be drops, such as the picture on the right bottom corner. However, as you can see, there's a rope, which is a great assist. And yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, the terrain is really a question we get often when people are looking to do a alpine walk with us. And I think one of the key features here is just to be sure-footed and have a reasonable pace on different terrains is kind of an important thing. So
Absolutely. Slow and steady.
slow and steady. So where can you go on an alpine walk in Europe? Well, we've got this wonderful map here which shows the relief of where you can see the highest peaks and ranges, starting from the Pyrenees, which is the natural border between France and Spain. And this is a wild region. It's more remote than other mountainous areas, but it's also got some really interesting peaks and cirques and things. So we have a Pyrenees Circuit trek there, which is just fabulous. The Western Alps, which is this arc of very high mountains, as you can see here, that's where you're going to find all of the highest peaks in Europe, or in Western Europe, such as Mont Blanc, Monte Rosa, Matterhorn, Eiger. They're all in that region, and that extends from Italy, France, all the way through Switzerland and Austria, and ends just in Slovenia at the Julian Alps is the most eastern end. So then we also have the Dinarica range, which is the Dinarica Alps that are extend along the Balkan Peninsula. We often refer to this also as the Balkan Mountains. Here you'll find the peaks of the Balkan Trail, for example, that goes between Kosovo, Montenegro, and Albania. And finally, oh, not finally, because we've got lots of other mountain ranges, but this big arc here is a very long 1,500-kilometer mountain range called the Carpathian Mountains, which takes in the Transylvanian Alps in Romania, for example, and the Tatra all the way up in Poland. Off the map, we've got the Scandinavian Alps, which is actually the longest mountain range in Europe, and that's 1,700 kilometers. We do have a great fjord-based hike up there as well, but that is lower mountains, but really deep, beautiful fjords in that region. And across in the British Isles, we have the Scottish Highlands, which again, one of my favorite places to go hiking is the Scottish Highlands, and that's another great region. The other one of note is the Apennine Mountains, which is again a 1,200-kilometer extension of mountain range that really takes in a lot of the center of Italy as well.
When should you go? Um, Springtime is a wonderful season to walk. This is when I did our Mont Blanc guided. It was actually the first June departure of the season, and I loved it for the contrast of the green meadows, the blue skies, the snow-capped peaks. And it's when you have a better chance of doing a bit of snow walking, which definitely adds to the adventure. The trails are also quieter as well. Summer is magical in its own right. The alpine flowers are in bloom. The fields are bleached a golden color from the, oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm thinking of autumn. So the alpine flowers are in bloom. It's a time when you don't have to pack as many layers, which is quite nice. The trails are buzzing with activity. It's definitely a little bit busier, which does mean that you need to book really early for those summer months, July and August. And my favorite aspect of hiking in the summer is, of course, the dips, with my most memorable swim being last summer on the Grand Paradiso guided walk in an alpine lake at 2,800 meters. It was chilly but refreshing on a hot summer day.
Oh, it does sound cold.
All right. So autumn is another time that I personally love to walk. This is when the fields are turning that golden color that I mentioned before, having been bleached by the summer sun, so really pretty glow. The leaves are also changing color, and it's a little bit cooler temperatures, which is quite nice. And I love coming back at the end of the long day hiking. having a hot shower, a hearty meal, and being nice and cozy in the Alpine gates with a glass of wine. It's really nice.
So basically, Ali, the Alpine walking season really only lasts for 3 months, and outside of that, you really can't walk in the Alps. You can certainly ski in winter, and a lot of the accommodations that are on the route that cater to Alpine walkers are closed outside the season. So really short season, which concentrates a lot of people in that space, and means that it can be super, super busy. And yeah, we can talk a bit about that
That's
later.
correct. And like you said, it is a common question we get. Can we do these walks in, for example, May? And unfortunately, it's too early. The trails are closed. They're covered in snow, and the gates and refuges are also closed. They take a break at that time unless they're open for ski season.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are the classic long distance trails in Europe? Well, you can't um, not begin with the Tour de Mont Blanc, and that is a 170-kilometer route that takes you through France, Italy, and Switzerland. I think it's an absolute favorite of all of our UTracks staff as well as clients. It really is a terrific route that shows you the most beautiful alpine terrain as well as gorgeous villages. So stopping into Courmayeur for a gelato in Italy and then having fondue in Switzerland and topping that off with Chamonix, which is one of my favorite towns in France. So Tour de Mont Blanc, definitely, if you haven't done any alpine walking, that's probably a good place to start. And, again, get fit and get out on the trails. It's really worth it. The Haute Route is an historic route. It takes you from Chamonix to Zermatt, and every day you've got huge pass crossings, about 1,200 to 1,400 meters a day in ascent, which is quite significant over about a 10 to 15 kilometer route. So really good pass crossings on that one. You need to be fairly fit. The Peaks of the Balkan Trail is one of the newer routes in Europe. It's 192-kilometer route that goes between Montenegro, Kosovo, and Albania. And it was set up in about 2012, I think. And that was as a peace project and also a way to bring tourists to this beautiful area. In conjunction with a German organization, they set up the trail and marked the trail. And now it's gaining a lot more popularity. And I certainly can see it rivaling Mont Blanc. It's got those beautiful mountain vistas, but also those lakes that Ali quite likes and waterfalls and shepherd's huts. You can stop in and have homemade cheeses, for example. And it also has the Teth Valley, which is a little mini Chamonix. It's really a growing village now, but it's really growing and it's definitely surrounded by some beautiful scenery. And finally, one of the key walking routes in the Dolomites is the Dolomites Altavia one. And that's a beautiful route that takes you from near the Austrian border in Dobbiaco right through the main center of all those wonderful limestones peaks that you see that are classic scenery, just as you can see in that photo. And it is a beautiful route. But what I wanted to explain to you is that there is at the Alta Via 1, there's about 5 Alta Vias in the Dolomites. The Alta Via 1 is the easier route. It actually takes in some of the easier terrain in the Dolomites. Not to say that any alpine walk is easy, because no alpine walk's easy. Everyone you need to put some commitment and effort and training into. Uh, the Aosta Altavia one is quite different to the Dolomites Altavia one in that it is an authentic alpine experience that is wild and remote and very hard. So the trip that we have on the Aosta Altavia one in Italy is basically a guided walk. And so you'll be in the company of our IML guides and it's in the shadow of some giants such as you'll have views of Mont Blanc, you'll have views of the Matterhorn and Monte Rosa, the second highest peak in Europe. And the Dolomites Altavia one is alternatively a self-guided walk, and it's an easier proposition. So just a little bit on the autovias in Europe, which are basically high routes.
All right, I'll take you through four of our classic guided hikes. So we've got our Dolomites guided hike, which is a circular hike rather than the linear. On this hike, you'll get to experience World War I history of the mountains with a knowledgeable guide while you're traversing those iconic moonscape-like peaks. You've got really charming mountain gîtes. This is a dormitory-based walk. But I just found the accommodations so charming and the food, your typical Italian cuisine, absolutely delicious. The next one is our Mont Blanc Encompassed, which is the 10-day full circuit hike. This is a trip that has limited departures doing the full circuit as opposed to our 7-day guided walk, which is a little bit easier to get onto. So for this 10-day, you want to book really early to avoid missing out. The next is the Bernese Oberland, and on this hike, you'll go through the most stunning alpine scenery in Switzerland, very high peaks, including the Jungfrau. And the final walk is our Grand Paradiso, which starts in Bourg Saint-Maurice in France and then crosses into Italy in the Aosta Valley. And you're walking through Italy's first national park. This trip gives you a great opportunity for wildlife. I saw lots of ibex, and as well, it's really wild. So unlike the Tour de Mont Blanc, which people love for crossing 3 countries on foot passing through little villages, on the Grand Paradiso, it's quite remote. You only go through one village throughout the whole week. So it's a real sense of wilderness. And on your second last day, you have the option to summit Grand Paradiso as well.
Wow, amazing. I was fortunate to take my kids on our Mont Blanc family hike, which really was such a wonderful experience. They still speak about this and they're into their 20s now. Taking kids on an alpine hike introduces them to a variety of terrain. And on our family trips, we combine families from different backgrounds. So you might have American families, French families, Australian families, all on the same hike. And it's amazing how those kids interact and have such a special experience together. Another feature of our family trips is that you can adopt a donkey basically and lead those donkeys through the mountains, which is just wonderful. We still talk about Geppetto, which was our one of our donkeys, and they're very much part of that alpine experience as well.
What is included in our trips? So both the guided and self-guided trips are very inclusive. Self-guided trips are well organized as a package with accommodation, luggage transfers, either by mule or by van, and meals as outlined per our itinerary notes, which you can find online. Some of the trips include arrival transfers, or we can assist with directions on how to get there. We do provide pre-departure information notes with all of our trips once they're booked. So you'll have all of the information to help you out with the plans for your trip, including your gear list. We also provide final documents with the GPS app if you're doing self-guided, or the directions on where to meet your group and your guide for the guided trips.
That's great. And food is one of those things that everyone looks forward to on an alpine hike, and these trips do not disappoint. All of our guided trips include all meals, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it really is all inclusive. You're barely ever putting your hand in your pocket, except maybe to go to the local shop to buy some chocolate, which is also important, particularly if you're in Switzerland. But
Or the
lunches,
bar for your glass of wine.
okay, or the bar for your glass of wine as well. Lunches are great. source of local produce. So you get to try the local meats, cheeses, breads. The guide will often will always make a salad. You'll have some snacks with you as well. On our breakfasts tend to be more lighter affairs. So if you really want to bring some supplements, you could mid-morning have a snack, but really no one goes hungry on our trips at all. Dinner's a three-course affair, usually starting with soup, then a main, and then dessert as well. And depending on which country that you're in, you'll have typical fare from that country, which is pretty decent.
I just had to add a little tidbit on the food note. On my last guided hike, which again was Paradiso, the guide surprised us one day with fondue, or sorry, raclette on the trail, using a gas burner and melting the cheese for us to put on some fresh bread. It was just incredible and a really amazing treat on the peak of the mountain with incredible views as we had lunch. So, yeah.
Yeah, those guides are pretty special, aren't they? Particularly when they
Yes.
pull out those rabbits out of their hats. Yeah,
Now,
amazing.
food's a favorite subject, but onto accommodation. So we use a mixture of Alpine sheets and refugios, as well as hotels. On our comfort trips, the hotels are typically 3 and 4 star, and they may even have small pools, a sauna, big treat after the end of the day hiking, and usually have high class restaurants as well. In the Geets and refugios, depending on the trip, you may be in dorms all night, which is very in tune to the style of the walk in the Alps. It's the European way. And I've always found that with a good set of earplugs and a glass of wine or two after a long day's hiking, no problem sleeping. Some of the trips you do also have the option to upgrade in the Geets and Refugios to your own private rooms, which have ensuite facilities.
So during the walk, particularly around Mont Blanc and Grand Paradis, around the Monte Rosa, we use pack animals, and on the family trips we use donkeys, so mules or donkeys are used. Now, we do get sometimes asked about how we ensure that our animals are treated well. Well, they're like pets to us and our guides, and we strictly adhere to weight limits, and will always ensure that we're well within the ethical use of working animals. This actually is a long-held tradition in the Alps to use pack animals, and it is amazing how beautifully these animals fit into our group dynamics and become very much a part of it. So yeah, that it's a really special experience to be walking with a pack animal. Having said that, during the early and late season departures, we don't use pack animals because there's too much snow on the passes. So this is we only use pack animals in July and August as a rule. On a typical day in the Alps, you'll have breakfast first, of course, pack up your bag. Your luggage will be set aside to be taken by vehicle if you're on a self-guided trip, or if you're on a guided trip by pack animal. And then we head out on the trails, and we tend to keep close together in bad weather, with the guide wanting to keep the group together. And if it's good weather, we might stretch out along the trail so you can take your own pace. But the guide will have regular stops along the route to make sure that everyone is comfortably walking and able to deal with the day's walk, of course. We stop for lunch, and that can be often a leisurely lunch. Our guides do like a leisurely lunch, and this gives us a chance to really reflect on the environment that we're in and be part of that environment. There's no rush to get to the accommodation at the end of the day. We just tend to take it easy on the trail. Of course, if you're on a self-guided trip, you're managing your time. But also, we don't want to get too late to the refuge or accommodation, because typically in August, July, August, we may experience late thunderstorms. So the guide will keep an eye on the weather conditions and make sure that the day's timetable adheres to that. And then we arrive at our our gîte or our refuge, and it's always got an amazing view, which you can soak up as you're having a glass of wine at the end of the day and having a chat to your new friends and sharing a beautiful dinner together as well.
All right. A really common question or chat that I have is about training. Um, the best way to train for any of your trips, be it walking or cycling, is to be doing more of the type of activity that you will be undertaking. Um, so I always recommend, if we're training for a hiking trip, to be doing as much as you can in the way of back-to-back walking. So walking on a Saturday and then walking again on a Sunday when the legs are a little bit sore. Or we've got, for example, the Easter long weekend coming up and the Anzac Day long weekend if we're here in Australia. So when we've got these long weekends, again, just doing that back-to-back training. Also, about 3 to 4 months before your upcoming trip, just ramping up the cardio activity a little bit. And that can be doing anything that you enjoy. So it can be a mixture of activities, running, cycling, swimming laps, gym classes, as long as you're getting your heart rate up. I personally like to focus on stair training for the Alps. Can't say I love stair training, but it's certainly helpful. So I do little games, increasing the amount of reps that I'm doing and increasing also the weight that I'm carrying, whether it just be on my morning dog walk with a pack or um, out on a bushwalk with my friends. So while we're not carrying uh, heavy packs on our walks because we've got luggage support, it does help to work up to a little bit of weight as well as distance so that you feel better when you're up in the mountains.
So true. So getting fit to go walking, not walking to get fit, is our mantra, and it'll make that trip much more enjoyable for you, and certainly that first pass crossing. So gear is a question that we get all the time, and it's something that's super important to us. And I guess if you see the video on the left-hand side, you can see that that's a snow conditions happening, and that's in early September. So you do have to be prepared for different weather conditions. And the best way to do that is through the layering technique, and that's having a base layer that's either synthetic that wicks or merino is my preference. Then a warmer, thicker fleece layer to keep yourself warm. And then on top of that, a soft shell, which is a waterproof layer. So having a waterproof, stormproof jacket is very important in any alpine hike, as well as waterproof pants. Absolutely essential. Most of the time I carry waterproof pants and never use them, but for this time back here on the left-hand side, which I'll show you again, we were all wearing waterproof pants for that reason because it was cold and that snow was wet. So it was really important to have waterproof pants. So much as everyone hates having waterproof pants, take them along. Having also, you need a waterproof cover for your backpack. And if you've got, like, for example, an Osprey backpack, they do come with waterproof covers as well.
Okay, a little bit more about the gear that you'll bring on your alpine hike. As I mentioned, we do provide a pre-departure information kit, which has a full gear list, but things that you will typically need are a good pair of boots or trail runners. I would highly recommend boots with ankle support for those steep ascents and descents that we see in the Alps. Walking poles are also a personal choice, but highly recommended. And for example, on the past couple of alpine trips, I did almost the full group, maybe except for 1 or 2 people had walking poles. They certainly help take the weight off of your, help distribute the weight from your joints. And also, um, good pair of wicking socks. So that helps with deterring from blisters. We also recommend having a wide brim hat and a buff in the summer months. So July and August, particularly when the sun's strong, just to give you a bit of sun cover. And then finally, really important to also stay hydrated. So we recommend about 2.5 to 3 liters of water. I personally like to carry a water bladder, which means that you're constantly sipping throughout the day with a little bottle as a backup. Oh, the other thing I'll mention as well is a well-fitting backpack. As a woman, I like to use the Osprey packs. They're the only company that really tailor for a woman's figure. So having tried lots on, um, they fit really well around the waist.
Yeah, I agree. Well-fitting backpack is really important, and also sunglasses. You can't underestimate the strength of the sun at that at altitude, and just having those sunglasses is super important as well.
Okay, I was asked to choose a few favorite moments, and it's just so hard. I've done quite a few incredible hikes with UTracks over the years. Mont Blanc will always stand out as one of my favorites because it was my first, and it was just overcoming a bit of worry that I wouldn't be fit enough, overcoming that challenge, feeling a real sense of reward at the end of each day's walk. This past year doing Grand Paradiso, as I mentioned previously, I just loved it for how wild it felt. The accommodations were truly in the middle of nowhere, no villages, just huge, stunning mountains and glaciers around us. The alpine swims and seeing the wildlife as well. So those herds of ibex were absolutely incredible. Um, as Kate mentioned, I'm always thinking about what's next in my ever-growing bucket list. So really excited to be doing our Transylvania Castles and Mountains self-guided, our Bulgaria on foot, and Peaks of the Balkans highlights. And these are all areas that are quite up and coming, and I think they'll be really different to what I've done before in the Alps. I love Switzerland, France, and Italy, but I'm really excited for new cultures, new languages, foods, and also pretty cheap, not using the euro, using different currencies. So again, really excited for Romania, Bulgaria, and Albania, Montenegro.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I agree with you, Ali. The Tour de Mont Blanc is such an amazing hike. I cannot not mention that as well. And having experienced it by myself and my husband, and also with my kids when they were very small, was such an incredible thing. And for me, experiencing walks, whether that's with my family or with strangers that become friends, that's part of the whole atmosphere for me on on any hiking trip. So I've been fortunate to have some fantastic groups of people hiking with me, including my son on the Tatra Mountains trails, which was just amazing, walking along routes with blueberries lining the trail. Love that. And just having that special time with him, as well as on the peaks of the Balkan Trail with my husband and friends. And wow, 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 that scenery is amazing. If anyone's considering a different hike in a different country in Europe, then definitely put that one on your bucket list. It is fantastic. So, when to book? Well, I think it goes without saying that these trails are very busy. And I think the self-guided trips for Mont Blanc, we usually close those departures in early January because there's simply no more availability for self-guided. For the guided, we've got allocations. So we do have some a spattering of places available on some of our trips, even still now, which is fantastic for those late bookers. But I would always say, book early so that you're not disappointed. Would you agree with that, Ali?
Yes, especially with the self-guided, just to explain a little bit of our process, because even when they are available to book, it's still a request basis. So requesting with the hotels or mountain guides for availability. So the sooner you can book, the better chance we have of getting into our preferred properties. And also, like Kate said, you can miss out, unfortunately, if you don't book soon enough.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. So, look, I really hope that we've been able to address all your questions and give you some inspiration on hiking in um, the Alps in Europe. And I think we can hand that over to a Q&A now,
Yes,
Will.
thank you so much for a very inspiring presentation, Ali and Kate. I actually maybe reminisce about my own Tour de Mont Blanc experience a few years ago, and yeah, just absolutely breathtaking. It's definitely one of the must-do hikes in Europe. So if you have not done that one, put it on your to-do list. Unlike one of our um, questions, so with this little Q&A box down the bottom below at the bottom of your screen, if you'd like to type any questions in there, you can. We did have a question from Faraz, who says that they've done the Tour de Mont Blanc, West Highland Way in Scotland, and the UK's coast to coast. They want to do another hike, which has beautiful scenery and is roughly comparable to the Mont Blanc in difficulty. What, any recommendations? I I did suggest that the Dolomites would be the obvious Alpine one, and maybe the GR20 in Corsica as quite a challenging route. Do you guys have anything else to add to that?
Oh, the GR20 is a really tough route. That's one of the toughest routes in Europe. But so in terms of the difficulty, I would say that the Dolomites would be the good one. Either the Via Alta or the our guided walk, which is, as Ali said, the circuit walk. Ali, have you got any other suggestions?
Well, it sounds like this person's done a lot of self-guided as well. So we do have the Tour de Monte Rosa self-guided,
Hmm.
which would be a great option for those alpine views that they loved on Mont Blanc, and a similar challenge rating as well.
Yeah, nice. Some good trips for you to put to your bucket list there for us. We've also had a question from Brad who's asked, he's traveling solo. Is there any Alpine solo hikes in our range?
Yeah, so any of our self-guided trips, typically, I shouldn't say any, but most can be booked with a as a solo walker with a solo traveler supplement. As well, he could join a guided group if he wants to be with other walkers.
Yeah,
Yep.
and around Mont Blanc there is no solo traveler supplement because you're staying in dorms and we're just transferring your luggage as well. So yeah.
Quite true. Yeah.
Yeah, great for solo travelers then.
Mm.
It's awesome. Another specific request, if someone is a vegetarian on these trails, does the Alpine Huts and the Refugios, do they cater for vegetarian requests?
Yes, absolutely. We just need to be notified on the booking form and then we pass that along. And personally found that on our guided hikes, the ones I've joined, there's always been a couple of vegetarians and the guides are excellent at catering for them. Like I said, there's lots of options with salads, fresh cheeses, breads, fruits, etc., a bit of chocolate.
Yeah,
But
of
then
course.
in the evenings, you've got your hearty pastas and soups, and everything can be done for a vegetarian.
You really come out at the end of these hikes as like a picture, a model of health, don't you? You feel like
Mm.
so rejuvenated and refreshed. It's great. Um, okay, good. I've got a question from Bly who's asked about the altitude. She's done Everest Base Camp before. Is there any qualms about the altitude in Europe?
I would say that Europe is even though you might go over 2,500 meters at times, the sleeping altitude is usually 2,000 or below 2,000 meters, which is where you wouldn't typically get altitude symptoms from. Everyone's different, of course. Keeping hydrated is the most important thing when you're on an alpine trek, and I personally have never had any issues with altitude, although I have in the Himalaya and also on Kilimanjaro as well. So, yeah, I'm not immune to altitude illness, but certainly not in the Alps.
Nice. Okay, we just got a question. Last couple of questions here. If anyone's got any more questions, please feel free to type them in the box. But I just got one from Alana, who's asked about the toilet actually. If you're walking along the trail and you get caught short, is there a toilet situation like?
So it depends on the trail. Sometimes you might be able to stop into a village shop if there's a village along the way or a mountain beach along the way, because you do go past a couple sometimes. And if you buy something like a chocolate bar, you might be able to use the toilet. Otherwise, a bush wee.
Yeah.
It's part of alpine hiking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, you are fully in the nature there, so yeah, I
Absolutely.
totally agree with that. And there's no judgment from anyone, I don't think.
Carry a little bit of toilet paper.
And a
Yeah,
little plastic bag to keep that toilet paper so that we
Of
don't
course.
litter, of
most
course.
definitely. Yes. And then just the last question, it's actually from me, but
Oh,
which tour would you like to do if you'd like to see the delightful little marmots, those big, quite squirrel rodent animals?
well,
Well, really, any of the
yeah,
Alps, right?
Any of them, fantastic.
But
the
I
Tour de
think
Mont Blanc, for sure. They're all around the Tour de Mont Blanc.
I'm gonna say Gran Paradiso because
Yeah.
it is so much quieter. We're really not seeing any other walkers aside from a couple. Really, it's just our group out there. And I was seeing the marmots, the chamois, the foxes, ibex, like really had incredible sightings because of how quiet it was in the wild.
Yeah, there's nothing like spotting a little critter on the trail. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. So,
And
all right.
that really is interesting because whenever I speak to the guide group, I ask them what their favorite trip is, and they often say Gran Paradiso. So, that's probably the reason why is those it's a higher walk, but also the wildlife and the flowers and the accommodation is amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ali and Kate. It's been a very inspiring presentation. I hope everyone has enjoyed that and is full of great advice now and is ready and raring to go and tackle Europe's trails. Um, yeah, if you would like any more advice or questions, you can always feel free to call your local UTracks office up. You might get Ali or Kate on the phone and you can further ask questions. But that's it. So thank you so much for your presentation, guys.
Okay, thanks everyone.